Hello everyone and welcome to Franchise Focus. I'm your host Lisa Linkowsky. I am a certified franchise consultant and I am the owner of Milestone Franchising. And Franchise Focus is all about shining a light on experts in the franchise industry. And today, for this episode though, you've got me solo, and we're going to talk about the role of a franchise consultant because we've never really dived into that. And my contribution each month to Franchise Wire spurred me to consider this for the show today because the article is all about the legitimacy of franchise consultants and what they are and what they bring to the table and why sometimes people are very leery of what it is that we do and whether or not we should work with them. But I'll tell you, from doing this show for now quite some time, I think this is my 60th episode, many of the franchise owners that I have interviewed over this period of time, many of them have used franchise consultants and they have talked about the benefit that it has brought to them. And the franchise consultant wasn't me. These are people from across the country there. And years ago, could be 15 years ago, 20, as recent as just last year. And they've talked in these episodes about why that was helpful to them. And that only helps me to strengthen, to understand how to send that message to the audience and to people that I'm speaking to that are interested in franchise business ownership and they don't understand what my role is. So I'm going to start off with talking about what this process is. That's first and foremost. So there is, in franchising, everything is a process. I think I say that all the time, and I'm going to say it again because everything is a process, and there's a process when you work with a franchise consultant. So first and foremost, who even should be working with a franchise consultant? And that's a question that I get asked when I'm networking. And I always say it's someone that has always expressed an interest in owning a business. That right there is something, and they are looking to get out of corporate America or whatever situation that they're in right now. They want to exit it and they want to go become their own entity, and they want to go fly independently and get that independence of freedom and of finances and what have you, but they don't have their own concept in mind. They don't have their own business. And so franchising is a great way for them to look at business ownership because someone else kind of created that whole level, area, branding. They've put it all into a box, so to speak, and now they hand it over and now you take that on. But it also can be very beneficial for investors that are looking to add to their portfolios and they want to look at other revenue streams. That's another area of people that are often looking at franchising. There are people that are looking to come into the country from other countries, and so there are specific visas that are offered to them in the franchise space. So myriad of reasons for why people are looking at, but those would be the ones. And when you're talking about a franchise consultant, it's not all are created equal. And the reason why I aligned with the International Franchise Professionals Group, IFPG, it's a broker network, is because they offered a certification process, and it was several weeks of training, and there was in-person training as well as things that I had to do on my own, and then at the end we had to take an exam. But it does not stop there. We have to do continuing, I guess you would kind of call it continuing ed credits, where we have to take part in so many webinars throughout the year. And if we do not get to the amount of hours that are required, then we do not get to continue on with our certification. So they offer me every day, Monday through Friday, a webinar, an hour webinar every single day that I can log into and learn about being a better franchise consultant, as well as about different concepts that I represent, which is 500 plus concepts. And that's a lot. That's a lot to try to wrap your head around. And so they really do their best in helping us to stay on top of what's out there. But it's not just that. They offer in-person retreat. In April, we have a virtual summit that we'll be attending. Then they have regional mixers throughout the year, I think 6 or 8 a year that we can attend. So lots of different opportunities of education and being in front of our peers and also the franchisors and learning best practices, et cetera. So I really like that. That's why I chose IFPG for which broker network to belong to, because I thought that set me aside. Also, IFPG has been named the 4th best broker network. I'm not the 4th best, oh my goodness. No, the best broker network 4 years in a row. And that's voted on by the franchisors. And that's incredibly impressive to me, because the franchisors are sitting there and saying that out of all the broker networks that they work with, IFPG is the best, and the consultants that are part of it are also the best. And so then I become part of that. And that, just elevates me as well. Another reason for working with a franchise consultant is that we offer impartial guidance. If you try and tap around on the internet and you find a franchise concept that you really like, you then are introduced to a franchise development person. And that franchise development person, their goal is to walk you along this process and hopefully get you to be awarded a franchise within their system. That's their goal. They're hired by that company, they're an employee of that company, that's their goal. Whereas a franchise consultant, like I mentioned, I represent over 500 concepts, so I don't have any real pull. I don't have anyone telling me, first of all, what I should or should not show, so that's number one. Number two, I don't have quotas. This is all just entirely me. Milestone Franchising is me. I'm autonomous, and that's super important. And if I really feel, or I get some kind of intel along the way that I'm like, I don't think this is a good idea, then we're going to back off from that. And oftentimes also talking people and telling them that this is not a good space for them, that they should not be a part of franchising. It happens. It's happened twice this week. And there are other people that would make them cringe. They would go, you're telling them what? But yeah, it's not meant for everybody. And this is not a selling tool. This is not, this is not used cars. This is serious business. This is life-changing, serious business ownership. And so I take it very, very serious, and so do many of my colleagues that are out there. I mentioned that the broker network that I belong to, they provide us with all sorts of webinars and ways for us to be in front of the franchisor, and that provides market research. That provides us to have intel way beyond what you can see from the position that you're standing in. And it also goes beyond that. It goes to masterminding with other franchise consultants to talk about the concepts that are out there and what they're hearing and what their experience has been, good, bad, and sometimes ugly. And how the process has been for them when they've shown a candidate. That right there is priceless, to be able to have that discussion, because again, 500 concepts, I'm not getting through all 500, but there may be a concept that's been on my radar and another consultant has been showing that concept, and now I get their take on what that whole process was like. That's very, very helpful. And hearing also different things that they have found out about that concept. But make no mistake, it's not our job to find every single thing out about these concepts and be able to, prepare you to the hilt with any of this. Just know that from our standpoint, we're looking and showing things that we go, these are solid businesses with, strong management. I always ask, is there any litigation? And if so, why? Why is there litigation? You get to ask these different kinds of questions. And yes, it's also available to you in something called a franchise disclosure document. But again, walking you through to a concept and then getting to that point where it turns out that there's, a mass exodus and tons of lawsuits, who has time for that? You don't have time. You don't have time to sit there and go all the way through and fall in love with a concept just to find out something like that. No. We're going to look at this, ahead of time. The biggest area that I think stops people when I talk to them about franchise consulting and what it is that we do is the fact that I don't charge anything for my services. And the franchising world is overseen by the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, and there's a franchise rule where unless I stipulate and both parties agree that I am charging this set fee, no fee can be charged. And so most of us do not charge anything. In fact, I don't know anyone that does. And someone may ask for a deposit because they want to make sure that the candidate is serious. But in my opinion, for me, I don't charge anything. And I look at it like an executive recruiter where if someone goes down the line and they are awarded a franchise, then I'm compensated by that franchise system, and that's much like an executive recruiter, right? So it's the same type of concept. But meanwhile, that candidate, they don't pay me anything. They just get to enjoy speaking with me and hearing my experience of being in franchising for 10 years and having the access to information that I have and understanding that I am helping them through this and I'm trying to help shine a light for them to see more clearly and to make a better decision as they move along. So we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor, and then we'll get more into franchise consultants and what they're all about. So stay tuned.
I'm Bob Hochgertel from Kings Road Brewing Company. I'm here to tell you about a brand new show on RVN television called Cooking with the King. Each week, we're going to taste and sample some of the best beers the Kings Road Brewing Company has to offer. And we're going to talk to area chefs and restaurant owners as we pair our beer with their signature dishes. We're going to teach you how to cook and eat like a king. Cheers.
Most stressful.
Welcome back to Franchise Focus. I'm your host, Lisa Linkowsky, and today we are talking all about what I do, which is being a franchise consultant and what that means and why it's beneficial to people that are looking into buying a franchise business and trying to go it alone versus trying to utilize someone like me. So before the break, I talked all about the benefits of using consultants. And so now what I want to do is walk you through what my actual process is. And this is just my process. I can't speak to any other consultant, but many consultants that I am colleagues with, we follow a lot of the same type of structure, and we may deviate from time to time on this versus that, but by and large, it's a pretty similar practice that is very helpful, not only for you, but for us, and then for the franchisor, right? So process systems in place, always important, and even with working with a franchise consultant. So what do you expect? The first thing that I do when someone says that they would like to speak to me is I schedule a 1-hour informational call. And yes, 1 hour. And I know our attention spans are very minimal these days. but an hour is really critical. And when I talk with someone, I engage them in asking all about them. Everything, soup to nuts. Their passions, their hobbies, the things that they hate, things that are energy, drainers, things that they love, politics in their business and in the job that they're doing that they do not like, the types of roles that they really embrace and are really strong at, and those that they just would shy away from. I always ask all my candidates, do you have pets? And that always stops them. They're like, what? Why is she asking about that? Well, because it just tells you something about someone, right? Do they work with their hands? Do they like being outside? It's just little pieces of a puzzle that I'm trying to put together about this person and trying to build it and build upon it and make it a clearer and clearer picture for me to do my job. If someone is married or they have a partner, I am 100% going to have that partner on the call with me as well, so that they can hear everything from beginning to end, whether they're going to be a part of this or not. Because why? They are involved. It's also their finances. They're going to be involved. They're involved with the stress of it. You want them to be on your side. You want them to be buying into this. And if they are part of it from the very beginning, you can guarantee that better. So I'm talking to both people from the very beginning. But if someone is solo, then clearly it's just a solo. But if they're partners, an investor type situation, I have to talk to all the partners as well. Whoever's going to be kind of involved in this then has to be a part, and we're going to go on this road together. So we have this information session. I really ask a ton of questions. And then I give a whole explanation about who I am and what franchising is all about and why this is going to be beneficial to them. And then, answer any questions that have come from that point. At the end of the information session, if they're still hanging on and they still are interested, and I've not scared them off talking about that business ownership is extremely difficult, then we go to the next stage, which is sending them a candidate form. And the candidate form asks a whole bunch more questions. And it's a lot more intimate and a lot more personal in that it starts to get into financial information and financial background. And that's critical, because without that, I can't do my job. And it's something that some people are extremely uncomfortable about, and so we have to really get over that level of discomfort. And other people, they send it over without even thinking about it. But the reason for that is that my franchisors have requirements for net worth, for liquid cash, and for liquid cash and for net worth, and those are critical pieces. And cash on hand, which is part of that liquid capital. And each concept is different, right? Each concept. I represent concepts that range from $12,000 to $6 million. So, looking at someone's financials, I can immediately understand, okay, where do they want to go and where do they fall in? And then also, how much are they willing to spend, right? So if you've got piles and piles of cash that you're sitting on, that's all well and fine. But if you're only looking at parting with 20% of that money, I need to know that. That's going to be an important piece of this. So yeah, having a whole discussion about the financials is really critical, and that's part of this candidate form. And then also it goes through and asks a lot of questions that we go through on the informational call, all about what type of franchise are you looking for? And what do I mean by that? Is it business to business? Is it business to consumer? Do you not care? Is it a young franchise, otherwise known as an emerging franchise? Or are you looking for something that's been around for longer and has more, more foundation under itself? Or are you looking for something rock solid, like an empire that's, got thousands upon thousands of units that are out there? That's another discussion that we have. And then it's, well, what type of franchise model? You've got your work from home, you've got your mobile business that's out there, you have light industrial office space, and then you have your brick and mortar. So that's another area. Check, check, check. What are you looking for? And some people check all the boxes. Some people just check one box because they're like, I only want this. And that helps to narrow everything down for me that much further. So going through this candidate form, having them fill this out, and then the most important piece of it is ranking industries. Because I represent over 500 concepts, it's a whole heck of a lot for us to narrow down, and so we do that by looking at industry. So for going back to that discussion about the pets, you know, if someone's not a pet lover, then I'm not going to be showing them a pet franchise, right? So I have them rank each industry. What's of interest to them? What's going to be exciting to them? What's going to drive them and get them to want to do this? And then that narrows this down even further. The other piece that I give them is something called a Zoracle. And I had a episode devoted to Rebecca Monet, who created the Zoracle Business Assessment. And this is a free assessment. It's on my website. Anyone can take it. And you get the results. I get the results as well. And it's a business assessment specific to franchising. And it really, really dives in to show your strengths and weaknesses, your business acumen, what kind of culture that you really thrive in, and whether or not you should even be in a franchising model, which is really critical and really key. And so between these two documents, we then come back and we review all that information together. And I'll tell you what, everyone that takes this Oracle, it is, they call it the spot on match, and it's true. It is spot on. Every time people look at me and they're like, oh my gosh, or the spouses are like, this is so on target about their spouse and then about themselves. So that's always a fun, you know, exercise for them. And again, it just gives me more information about this person, give them more information. And then when I make an introduction to a franchisor, this information is then given to the franchisor so that they can look at it and they can see, oh yeah, look, this is a well-vetted candidate. They would fit well in our culture. They're checking all the boxes for them because this is an interview process. Everyone is interviewing each other in this whole process. So I come back with my candidate, we review all this information, and now the heavy lifting comes back to me because now I'm going to go and find those concepts that match the best for this candidate. That's fun. We come back, I review these concepts at a very high level of just whetting their appetite, letting them see what these concepts are that I think are really good for them. And then from that point, making that introduction and then staying with them all the way through the process until they either A, get to the finish line and they're awarded a franchise, or B, they go, Lisa, this is not for us. We've decided to go in another route. Great, no problem. But if they do decide to go along the whole path, then I'm also making great franchise connections because of the networking that I do and introducing to important franchise lenders, franchise attorneys, strategic CPAs that will help people build their businesses. You name it, I've got someone, right? I'm in Jersey, so you could say I've got a guy, I've got a gal for whatever anyone needs, and I can help assist with that. Then, if they're awarded a franchise, I stay with all my candidates. I meet with them quarterly to see how things are going, see if they're on fire in any way. Is there anything that I can do to help put out that fire for them, or to just be a sounding board? Because in the beginning, especially, it's tough. It's scary. You're most vulnerable in the beginning, and so if I can help a lending ear, and listen, and in some way help in whatever way that, no matter how big or how small, I'm there for them. And that's really the whole thing, other than also there's a whole FDD review and validation, which I dedicated an entire episode just to validation. But it's an educational process the entire time. No pushing one way or the other, no trying to convince, no talking them one way, or this is purely educational and giving every single possible thing that I can to help so that they feel confident in the decision that they've made. all at no cost, by the way. So if you want to learn more about what I do and you want to reach out and have a conversation with me, here's my contact information for you. And my website is at milestonefranchising.com. So please feel free to reach out and have a wonderful free conversation that's educational. I try to make it fun and just bring you a little bit of laughter too at the same exact time, because we all can use that. So thanks for tuning in to yet another episode of Franchise Focus. And I am Lisa Linkowsky. I'm the host and the owner of Milestone Franchising. Franchise Focus airs every Friday at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And until next time, thank you so much for tuning in.